Hey, deserving listeners. This is the Psychology in Seattle podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor.
My name is Humberto Castañeda, and I design AT-AT replicas.
All right, so we have now arrived in the timeline at 2019, and I want to talk about the Cybertruck viral video. So this is a video on the YouTube channel, The Sun.
Yeah.
Sure?
Yeah. Oh my God. Well, maybe that was...
They are demonstrating the Cybertruck, and as a part of that, there was a whole discussion about how the glass is indestructible, essentially. And then there's a demo where his employee or one of his colleagues gets a steel ball, throws it at the driver's side window, and it breaks. It doesn't shatter, but it does break. And then the colleague is smiling and looking over at Elon Musk, and Elon is also smiling as well. And they're just like, oh, okay, so let's continue watching.
It didn't go through. So that's a plus side.
Let's try the right.
Try that one? Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, man.
It didn't go through. Not bad. Room for improvement.
Awkward.
Very awkward. Very awkward. But it is telling to me about several things because, number one, from all accounts, the design of this car was definitely from his mind, what he thinks of as a futuristic vehicle. We're having some success with people uptaking the cars we've put out so far, but one thing we don't have is we don't have a truck. And he's like, well, yeah, but I don't want my truck to be a boring truck because he doesn't like drive trucks, right? So he's like, he's not the customer. He's like, I want cyberpunk. And so he, I'm sure that how many engineers must have said, this is not going to work. Probably people in the business side, like, we can't make money with it. Like, I'm sure he heard it all, and he's like, don't care. And this to me is the George Lucasification of his trajectory, right? Because he's reached that point where he's got so much power in that company that whatever he wants, he gets, period. There's no one to challenge him at all. Because if you were thinking really as a business person, as a genius business person, like, how do we break into the truck market? Oh, they could have done it. Rivian's had a great product. Like a lot of actual auto manufacturers, Ford has they could have done it, right? But he didn't approach it that way. He's like, I want something that's zombie apocalypse proof, that I can claim as nuclear proof, like all these dumb, stupid, irrelevant things. Yeah. And he wanted it.
Yeah.
And so then that's what they did.
Yeah. But to me, it's neither here nor there. He took a risk and,
But you weren't about to buy a truck, right? You weren't in the market for a truck.
No.
So there is a demographic for the people that still think Tesla's cool, Elon Musk is cool, have a ton of money, are willing to wait, are willing to take a risk, and sort of want a truck, right? But it's a small market. The people that actually need a truck, the things they need out of a truck are different. And this compromises all of them in order to fulfill this childhood fantasy of this dude.
The other question I have, Berto, you probably know more about this than I do. They do these demos in the tech industry all the time, right?
Yeah.
In video games or whatever. And it's a stage event and
things go wrong all the time.
I have some distant memories of like, didn't something go wrong with the iPhone once on stage? But I didn't know how common this was because I don't even watch these kinds of things. I don't even watch the snippets of them when they go well. Yeah. Because I just don't really, they seem kind of cringe to me because the way they do it, it's like someone coming on stage and presenting this new thing that's going to save humanity, and everyone in the audience is just like going crazy over a new version of iPhone. That's to me where I would see it would be like,
sure,
some CEO at Apple would be presenting the iPhone 7 or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, it's a faster phone. Who cares? Like it has a better chip, whatever.
But this is definitely where you see the difference between this guy and Steve Jobs. Because when Steve Jobs introduced the first iPhone, a thing that was, I guarantee, prone to a billion failures. I'm sure that they were sweating every second of that presentation, and they had backups and all these things. But that presentation was like legendary for how effective it was. Because what he focused on was all the value. And the demos worked, right? So, but and then even when things were like slow or whatever, there was no awkward he wasn't an awkward guy.
Okay, well, let's actually watch.
Yeah.
So this video is from Watch Mojo YouTube channel.
Steve Jobs' demo of the device was going pretty smoothly until he decided to open up the New York Times Live. While the display was reflected on a massive screen behind him, Jobs' phone failed to connect to the Wi-Fi and projected a massive error message.
You know, you could help me out if you're on Wi-Fi, if you could just get off.
So, albeit it wasn't certain if that was a problem with the iPhone.
No, it wasn't. It was their Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Everyone was online at the same time. This was an infamous one for sure. But you can tell two things. First of all, I mean, yes, it is true that anyone casually watching this would be like, oh, I guess that phone doesn't work. But in reality, he's not betting the company on a feature of the phone that's untested. It's more like he needs to connect to New York Times. And this is iPhone 4, right? And when it's not working, he adds some levity to it.
Yeah, well, to me, I don't really care about Steve Jobs or Elon Musk. It's more just a matter of these things happen. When I found this video, I was like, oh, because there's 10 famous failures on stage. And if you would have asked me how rare it was for that to happen, where they're demoing this truck and they throw a ball and it breaks the window, I would have said that's the first time anything like that has ever happened before.
Oh,
but
no.
when I actually started looking it up, it's like these things happen all the time. But I want to watch another one.
Yeah.
Apple software executive Craig Federighi attempted to unlock the device by simply looking at it, but the facial recognition seemingly failed, reverting to the passcode screen.
Unlocking it is as easy as looking at it and swiping up. And, let's try that again.
This sparked concerns about a major flaw with the feature.
I mean, to me, as someone who has made mistakes or had disaster, to me, I just feel bad for those guys. Is that a good phone? Does it work? Does the Face ID work? Yeah, it does. And sometimes there are problems,
This one is a little closer in my mind. The funny thing is, imagine that in the iPhone demo with Jobs, the thing is like, oh, by the way, we made these things indestructible. And then he throws it on the ground and proceeds to try to stomp on it, and he slips on it and falls backwards. Totally unnecessary. No one cared about you trying to do that, right? So it was similar, why did you even promise you had bulletproof window? No one asked you to do that, right? This one, on the other hand, is similar because no one had asked for facial unlock, right? That was a big controversial thing. It's no one wanted it. Everyone liked it. But they're like, no, we're going to do it. So they do it, and then it doesn't work, right? So that one's closer to it's a feature that's not a must-have. Your phone can work just fine if you didn't have that, and yet they screw up the demo.
To me, when I looked into this, it was just kind of illuminating to see oh, okay, well, they were demoing something, and maybe 3-4% of the time there's an embarrassing failure of some sort. And to me, what it illuminated again as the cannabis incident, to me, the main conclusion I can confidently draw is that the online chatter about that happened with Cybertruck was everyone was like, this is the downfall of Elon Musk, and he is a horrible, horrible human being. And certainly, let's talk about that. But when I look at the landscape of these demos, sometimes mistakes are made. So to me, I'm like, I don't know. I'm neither here nor there about it.
I totally hear you, and I agree. In general, demos fail. I think only if you were deeply invested in everything that was going on behind the scenes would you understand that is just the tip of the iceberg. That scenario of him being we have bulletproof windows here, let me demonstrate, or it failed. What's the iceberg underneath the water is actually that he's been lying about everything. The delivery times, how much it's going to cost, how indestructible it's going to be, what it's going to be made of, how much it's going to cost to refill, everything, the weight, everything. It's all a lie. So the attentive people are right to point to that and say, what a liar, right? But you're absolutely right that the casual observer is wrong to point at that and say see, he's evil. And as well as the tech or the dude bros are wrong to point at it and be like, oh, it's fine, it's whatever, it's okay.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know that was the landscape. So when that happened, were you or others aware that he had already been lying or suspecting?
Yes, because the lies about all his products had been mounting over years of we're going to have this ready for production next year. We're starting a new line. That one's going to be this was after he had unveiled his plans for the Tesla Semi,
which was like the truck. And the claims in that event were incredible. He was saying that it was going to beat rail, like that you were going to be able to have a convoy of these things. It was going to be cheaper than rail. The capacity was going to be incredible, even though the weight of the battery would have actually made it so that you could barely carry anything at all. The claims were outrageous. And then it had been years since he never delivered that thing. Like, all these things were mounting. And so the people in the know at the time were like, more.
So it sounds more like Elizabeth Holmes.
Yeah.
But without it being healthcare and consequences
Right.
happening.
And it's like if you took only one little demo of Elizabeth Holmes of something going wrong with one of the machines, and you don't know anything else, and you're like, oh, she's evil. Whoa, why? Like, demos go wrong all the time. If you happen to know everything, you're like, she's lying.
Right.
Right.
And it's healthcare, so it's higher bar of scrutiny, bigger concept, more regulations around that. And what I'll say that I said during the Elizabeth Holmes deep dive that we worked on, that I've come to know and seen this personally, that this kind of lying is rampant in the tech world.
Yeah.
They're just lying all the time. Anyway, let's take a break. We get back. Let's get into the 2020s and talk about that. What do you say?
Let's do it.
All right, we're back from the break. So we've arrived at the contemporary era of the 2020s, and let's talk about some events in 2020. There are so many events to talk about. There's already been so many things that I've glossed over or not even mentioned. So just know that. I was trying to pick out the things that would relate most relevantly to his personality, but some notable events in 2020, of course, COVID, the lockdown.
Oh, yeah, pandemic.
A lot was revealed about his personality and his true intentions as he started to work against the shutdowns and vaccines. There's a whole section on that later, but just bookmark that for now. I'm going to go into specific tweets and the timeline. He also voted for Joe Biden this year, by the way. And Grimes gave birth to their son, their first child, and they named him X Æ A-Xii. So do you know what this name means exactly, Berto?
I don't.
So I looked it up.
Yeah.
And the X represents the unknown variable, right?
Okay.
In algebra. The AE is actually a mashed up with E. And apparently...
Oh, that one letter, right?
Yeah, apparently it's pronounced ash, and that is supposed to mean AI. And then the A-12 refers to the Archangel 12, an aircraft developed by the U.S. in the 1960s. Okay. I think it was like a cool aircraft, and my guess, given what I read, is that Elon Musk has always just really thought this plane was cool. Maybe he thought it was cool when he was a kid. But this name violated California regulations because there are certain letters that you need to use in the naming. Like you can't.
Oh, really?
Like you can't name someone Seven Spaces. You know what I mean?
Oh, I mean, it makes sense. I just never knew there were rules.
Yeah, legal names, right?
Yeah.
So they changed it to X A-X with two I's, so that
Okay.
So apparently you can't have 12. You can't have numbers.
Okay.
But dashes are okay, and ashes are okay.
Yeah, dashes are okay. Like we've seen lots of names with dashes, right? Like when it's
right.
like John Michael, or I don't know.
Yeah. Right. So what does this say about Grimes and Elon's personalities that they named their kid this? Anything?
I don't think it's a sign of like mental disorder. I just think they're both creative people. She's like an artist, so they're like, why don't we flout convention? Shouldn't like name him the same thing that everyone's named, Let's go crazy here. Fine.
Yeah. And I suppose you could argue it's a part of a larger trend of more unique names that are, we grew up, or I grew up anyway, and I guess in Colombia it would be similar, that I grew up with a lot of Jeffs and Chris's and Mike's and Jenny's and Sarah's.
Yeah.
I think there were, I'm not even joking, like 12 Jennifers in my class. So moving forward to 2021, Elon Musk was on SNL. And I remember when it was announced that he was going on SNL, and I thought at the time that everyone was going to boo him. But when I watched SNL, people didn't boo him. In fact, it kind of seemed like people thought he was really cool and funny. At least,
wasn't he still well liked? Or no, because he had already. I certainly was no longer on Camp Musk, but I thought that it was still.
I think that I don't have a good understanding of the general public's opinion, because I thought after 2018, not a single human being liked him on the planet. But from the SNL reaction, but maybe they told the audience, look, there's no booing here. Come on. I don't know. But the fact that they even had him on is also kind of interesting. I don't know if they would do that today.
Yeah.
I thought we would watch some of the clips, but I thought we don't have time for that. You could certainly watch those clips. Do you remember seeing the sketch?
No, I don't remember actually. I've since seen bits of his monologue.
Okay.
But I never watched the skits.
He's fine. And you can tell his monologue was written by writers. Yeah. And in the skits, he's fine. So 2021 also, Time Magazine named him Person of the Year, and they wrote about him, "This is the man who aspires to save our planet and get us a new one to inhabit. Clown, genius, edgelord, visionary, industrialist, showman, cad. A madcap hybrid of Thomas Edison, B.T. Barnum, Andrew Carnegie, and the Watchman's Dr. Manhattan." This brooding, blue-skinned man god who invents electric cars and moves to Mars. What do you think about that?
Wow, that's a headline. I mean, that's the same year that Tesla became the biggest company in the world by market cap. Yeah, I mean, I could see why they would write that, and it's not wrong. I feel like there's a lot about that is the reality. Obviously, he's not Dr. Manhattan, but he has his fingers in all these very, very, very important pies that we actually, scarily enough, will come to depend on a lot across so many technology sectors. Richest man on paper, biggest company on paper. The perceptions are, accurate. Like, people think he's the biggest genius since whatever genius, and that he's also going to save us all, or that he's an evil madman. All these things.
Yeah.
So I actually wouldn't disagree with that.
Yeah, the Person of the Year designation is often someone that Time Magazine would like to elevate, but sometimes it's just the person that makes the most sense to name as the most influential or the most talked about or something.
Yeah. It's just where it digs deep into me is because you could imagine Elizabeth Holmes being Person of the Year at some point back then, when she was still going. And you could imagine
in fact, I bet you she was on the short list.
On the short list, yeah. You can imagine Bernie Madoff. You can imagine all these people, being the Person of the Year. And it's like, oh.
Yeah. Well, I thought I would actually read, because I was wondering who are the recent Persons of the Year. I remember Hitler, I think, was Man of the Year in the 30s before we were at war. And I'm pretty sure Time Magazine wasn't endorsing. No. So there's that. But anyway.
Or maybe they were. I don't know. So I shouldn't say no.
So I'm just going to rattle through them and just let this wash over you, Berto. Because it's kind of an interesting look at year by year. So 1999, I thought I would start there because Jeff Bezos, Person of the Year. 2000, George W. Bush and Al Gore, because, they were going through their election. 2001, Rudy Giuliani, because that was after 9/11.
Right, he saved us from the terrorists.
2002, the whistleblowers. 2003, the American soldier, because we invaded Iraq. Right. 2004, George W. Bush. 2005, the Good Samaritans. 2006, you, as in us.
Everyone.
And it was identifying us as social media creatures, right?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it wasn't just like you, like, we like you. It was that it was highlighting how social media was becoming a thing.
That sounds familiar. I remember that.
It's kind of an interesting concept. 2007, Vladimir Putin.
Right.
2008, Barack Obama. 2009, Ben Bernanke. 10, Zuckerberg. 11, The Protester. 12, Barack Obama. 13, Pope Francis. 14, the Ebola fighters, which I find to be telling, because I don't know how many people were paying attention.
Isn't that the year where there was actually 1 or 2 Ebola infections in this country?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 15, Angela Merkel. 16, Donald Trump. 17, the Silence Breakers. These are the women who spoke out against sexual harassment. Me Too.
Oh, right. That makes sense.
18, the Guardians. These are journalists who face persecution for their work. 19, Greta Thunberg. 20, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. 21, Elon Musk. 22, Vladimir Zelensky. And 23, do you know who was Person of the Year last year?
Last year, Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Did you pull that from your memory, or did you just deduce?
I now remember, but in the moment I deduced because she was all the talk.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting to look at the way that Time Magazine describes him, because when I heard Person of the Year, I thought it would just be praise that they would say. But if you actually look at the way they describe him, it's not all praise, but I think that he would go along with this, is my guess. But it says, this is the man who aspires to save our planet and get us a new one to inhabit. And they have a number of descriptors here. Clown, that's the first one they start with. Clown. That's not incredibly derogatory, but it's not a compliment.
No. Well, it's like almost like class clown, Twitter clown.
Well, class clown is different. When I just see clown, I think that's a put down a little bit.
Yeah.
Genius. So clown, genius. And you just think how long it took them to like figure out what words to say and which
one's first. Yeah.
And then edgelord. That's not a compliment.
No, but it's accurate.
Visionary, industrialist, showman, cad. Cad's an interesting one because
What's cad again?
A man who behaves dishonorably, especially toward a woman.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was just kind of sort of a creep.
Yeah,
is what it is. That's interesting. Clown, genius, edgelord, visionary, industrialist, showman, cad. A madcap hybrid of Thomas Edison, B.T. Barnum, Andrew Carnegie, and Watchman's Dr. Manhattan. I don't agree with the Watchman's. I mean, I guess because of the Mars thing or something.
No, it's not just that. It's also the personality. They're because remember Dr. Manhattan is very like emotionless and like he sees everything, but he doesn't understand people.
Yeah.
So that's part of it.
But that's not how I see Elon Musk.
That's how they see him. They see him actually, I'd say a lot of people would describe him as he doesn't know how to interact with people. He's sort of like, it's rare to see him smiling, or he smirks, but not like, ha, ha, ha. Some of those podcasts show him smiling. But anyways, and lastly, he is all powerful, right? So
to me, Dr. Manhattan, because he is spanning space and time constantly, he is in another world because he's in another world. To compare Elon Musk, who is definitely not in another world and has no superpowers and doesn't have some kind of monopoly on logic or knowledge or something. I don't know.
Well, but remember, some people like Rogan and others do see him that way. That's in fact how they speak of him.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think in this bit of the description, they're more saying this is what he is, not the way that people see him. They're like a madcap hybrid of Thomas Edison, right? And B.T. Barnum. Anyway, let's take a break, Berto. And when we get back, it'll just be for patrons of the podcast. And we're going to get into an affair that he allegedly had in 21 and also a secret relationship that he was having apparently at the same time as Grimes. If you want to hear that, become a patron of the podcast. Otherwise, please take care of yourself because
you deserve it.